Get you a good, nutritious breakfast. Or, just have a few pancakes and a multivitamin. I think you're good on that too. In the past, I've talked about the merit of competitive games, whether it's sports, esports, card games. There's something to be had with player versus player aspects, the elements of what we bring to each game. I say that we all press buttons differently. Last week I talked a bit about in Super Smash Bros. Melee, the character Sheik is a pretty hard matchup for Yoshi, but you shouldn't be a full-on defeatist if you're playing Yoshi and someone picks Sheik, because that's the key word, somebody. Everyone's gonna press buttons differently. And so what you bring to the table and what your opponent brings to the table is its own conversation. And while discussing this, I've brought up the merits of Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars. Not only is he a well-beloved character, not just in Star Wars, but in pop culture itself. But there's a lot to be had with this character. He is the tried and true statement of how much power comes from patience, how much power comes from productive patience. Oftentimes we look at waiting for an opportunity, right? But it's in that merit of understanding when do you strike, right? And again, whether it's at the poker table making a call or whether you're playing Melee and looking for a punish combo, being able to recognize the situation to where you can capitalize for an advantageous position or just flat out win the game is big. And so what's interesting about Obi-Wan is he teaches the merit of, again, practice productive patience. Being productive is the important part of making progress here. I think some people think that being patient means that you're not doing anything. But patience alone is a strength and a merit that you can hold on with yourself for the rest of your life. It's such a good skill to develop because, just even outside of player versus player. Now we're talking about, the strengths of being able to wait a bit in traffic, the strengths of being able to understand that it's going to take some time to get a college degree that could help you out, not just with getting a job, but people need to remember that, degrees aren't, the reason why some jobs require degrees is because it proves that you showed discipline and critical thinking skills. And if you recognize that, then your patience of enjoying while you're in school could be big. It's not just, I hope to get out of here in 4 years, then I'll start being paid. Use that patience and understand what can you take from this scenario. You are given time right now to hone yourself. And in the midst of combat, you watch Obi-Wan. It's honestly amazing that Darth Sidious didn't go after that guy ASAP. He took out 2 of his 3 apprentices, and the one apprentice that Darth Sidious was willing to have killed off in episode 3 is the one that kept beating Obi-Wan. Darth Tyrannus was considered one of the best duelists of all time in terms of lightsaber dueling. And so that was a big testament to his strength. And obviously he taught Obi-Wan's master. Do I think over time Obi-Wan could have beat Darth Tyrannus, if he lived past episode 3? Yeah, I think so. I think that a merit to Obi-Wan's strengths is, again, he's using what he analyzes to his advantage. In the case of defeating Darth Maul and Darth Vader, he analyzes the arrogance of his opponents, recognizing the current situation, what he can take advantage of. People often make the memes of, I have the high ground, it's over, Anakin. But he played the exact right sequence of cards right there. His strategy to choose to leave that platform over lava and then bait out Anakin's arrogance by saying, it's over, I have the high ground. I think that was also just a fair warning by Obi-Wan. And he even warned him to not try it, and Anakin overextending with his new Sith powers, he jumped and he lost. And there is a merit. That is the big word today. Is merit. Is the merit of patience. And so when we look at the way you can incorporate how Obi-Wan fights, which is cool, that I enjoy that Star Wars actually dives deep into lightsaber form combat. And so there's all these different fighting styles, right? Obi-Wan is form 3, Sarusu. And it's really cool how there's all these different ways to use a lightsaber, and Sarusu is considered a pretty classic form. But again, just like fighting games, just like at the poker table, we all press buttons differently, we all play cards differently. And the way Obi-Wan used that classic form, it's almost like a form of its own when used with him. And I think that's actually the big part of competitive identity, is we underestimate that I'm gonna play Yoshi differently from how other people play Yoshi. I have people saying that, like just even recently. It's really interesting to hear the shared perspectives of other competitors saying how different we all play. And I want those people that when they tell me that, I want them to recognize that they also play differently. I want them to value that. I want them to value their individuality. That's kind of the beauty of competitive games, is what we bring to the table. We talk in sports, we can talk about what makes athletes like Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods so good. And that's fun. It's fun to analyze what made them who they are as competitors. And so you can imitate what they do as a basketball and golf player, but I do think there's a big important priority to take, and also how you play. What up in here is something that you can capitalize on. What in your life experiences is big. Back to Obi-Wan, he's gone through so much that by the time he meets Luke, Luke respects him, and Obi-Wan definitely can use that as a strength to help inspire Luke and then the next generation of Jedi that he ends up teaching. And it's another form of patience paying off. When unfortunately Order 66 happened, which I rewatched recently, and it's such a tragic scene. Obi-Wan's decision to play patient and try, to lay low, protect Luke, it's so important. There are so many people that if they heard that they had to spend nearly around 20 years on a desert planet with 2 suns protecting a child, I'm out. Yeah, I personally, I understand that. And I hope that's my thing. I say that now. There's a lot of people, I think, that unfortunately they might not have the patience for it if they heard that task. And we're talking about the context of Star Wars, where hopefully Obi-Wan sounds like he was paying his he was able to live where he was in terms of paying bills. But in the context of your bills are paid, blah blah blah, it makes you wonder how many people would do that. Or if your bills weren't paid, gotta go find the 9 to 5 Obi-Wan and protect Luke. But Obi-Wan's the type of guy that, it even showed it in the show. He's living his life while protecting Luke. And, I want to give the benefit of the doubt that I hope more and more people, as time goes on, values the virtue of patience, values what strengths lie in it. I think what makes patience so hard as a strength to see at first is it's because it's not naturally proactive. You can be a patient and be assertive. In fact, there is an assertiveness to being patient. You are seeing the current situation, and you recognize by waiting a bit, you might have a more valuable time to hit, to strike, to make a play, right? We're talking lightsabers and poker cards here. And especially if you're analytical like Obi-Wan, and you recognize that your opponents might be tried and true with setting up traps, and if you can recognize those traps early on and not giving your opponent what they want, and then recognizing how much they might crumble mentally and in their performance as you continue to not give them what you want, that can be an ample time to strike. It's beautiful on what the amount of patience can pay off for. And that's, I think, the reward is, don't be patient because you think there's always going to be a gift for you at the end. Be patient because it can form a strong sense of character. It can serve you throughout your entire life. Being able to observe and execute when you recognize that there's an opportunity to help others and help the world to become a better and safer place. I love Mondays.